The future of personal transformation has arrived. Built on groundbreaking developments in neuroscience and personal development, Avery is the world's elite transformational system that unlocks your limitless potential so that you can break through that final wall. With Avery, you can instantly and permanently erase the mental software that's keeping you stuck. You will become your greatest weapon or strongest peacekeeper. Sounds pretty exciting, doesn't it? What I just read comes from the website averycognitive.io. That's a website of a gentleman named Chase Hughes. In this episode, you'll learn how someone spent $50,000 on that Avery program and how they learned firsthand that it was all a lie, a con, a fancy-seeming illusion, behind which lay just smoke and mirrors. Hi, I'm Zach Elwood, host of the People Who Read People podcast, which you can learn more about at behavior-podcast.com. As you may know if you've listened to this podcast before, on some past episodes I've worked to draw attention to the lies of Chase Hughes, who, despite being invited on some big shows like Joe Rogan and Diary of a CEO, is a rather obvious con artist. Chase has deceived people about his credentials and experiences in the behavior reading and influence space, and lately he has veered into cult-like, all-knowing guru dynamics. He claims he can heal people's minds, and even give them an entirely new mind. He promotes the use of psychedelics to help accomplish that, and he engages in a wide range of other all-knowing guru-type things. This episode won't get into as many lies and unethical actions, as I can't continually take time to restate those things in new episodes. But if you're curious about those details, go check out the website whoischasehughes.com. This episode will be me reading a complaint by someone who spent $50,000 on Chase Hughes' psychological therapy services and who saw firsthand the nature of his practices. You can find this story also on the whoischasehughes.com site. To hold people like Chase Hughes accountable requires people speaking up about what they've experienced. And what helps people like Chase Hughes get away with their unethical practices is that victims can have various reasons for not wanting to speak up. Shame and embarrassment about being taken in and fooled by such grifters, and it being fooled into spending significant amounts of money, can play understandable roles in people not wanting to speak up. This was a factor for this person. She initially did not want to share her story publicly, but she did end up seeing that, one, she should not be embarrassed, as you can be smart and savvy and still be taken in by such scams, especially if you're in an emotionally vulnerable situation. And two, sharing her story would help other people. For other people, they may be afraid of backlash from Chase Hughes or members of his highly devoted inner circle. I don't think people should be afraid of that, though. After all, I've been criticizing Chase Hughes and drawing attention to his lies for a year and a half, and nothing bad has happened to me. If you feel you've been defrauded by Chase, please listen to this person's story and her recommendations. If you'd like, you can reach out to me via the contact form on my site and we can talk about it. Okay, here's this person's story of dealing with the Chase Hughes fraud. The Avery program, how I fought Chase Hughes and won. Hi Zach, I've been following your channel for a while, especially your work exposing Chase Hughes. I have my own story involving Mr. Hughes that I think your audience might like to hear. I was a victim of his elaborate Avery program and was facing the loss of $50,000. As you will read, I fought back, turned AI into my legal co-pilot, forced his bank account to be frozen, and got every single cent back. Now I want to use what I learned to help other victims realize that all is not lost. 1. The trap, the illusion of credibility. A couple of years ago, following a narrow personal escape from a narcissistic individual, I became fascinated by the psychology of manipulation, sociopathy, and psychopathy. The YouTube algorithm eventually served up Chase Hughes. I recognized him from the behavior panel. While I found that show's microanalysis tedious, Chase appeared to be the most credible of the four, backed by a purported 25-year pedigree in military intelligence. I watched his podcast appearances. He claimed to have spent 30,000 plus hours observing interrogations and to have written the literal instruction manual for military intelligence operatives. On his website, his ops manual was available for $175. I didn't dwell on how an ex-military operative was publicly selling state intelligence secrets for a profit. I fell for the illusion of authority. 2. Right scam, right time. A few years earlier, I had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. While my physical symptoms were slight, I was highly focused on managing my health, which led me to confront a lifetime of complex PTSD stemming from childhood. Traditional therapy had never quite reached the source of the trauma. It was through this vulnerable lens of CPTSD, MS, and a desire for a psychological breakthrough that I clicked on the Avery tab on Chase's website. The marketing was masterful. It promised to condense 4 decades of therapy into 4 days and claimed to be MRI verifiable. Had I come to this cold, I would have spotted the outlandishness. But in my defense, we do live in extraordinary times of technological and scientific discovery. Scammers don't need to be lucky every time. They just need the right scam to hit the right person at the right time. This was a pull scam. He used high-profile media appearances, like Diary of a CEO and the Joe Rogan Experience, to build an unassailable aura of altruistic authority. 3. The bait-and-switch intake. I filled out the application and was contacted by an Avery clinician. During our Zoom call, he described Avery as a neurological upgrade that had been, quote, installed in him. When he dropped the price tag, $50,000, I watched his body language involuntarily flinch. He claimed it used to cost $100,000 when Chase did it personally, but they wanted to make it, quote, accessible. When I mentioned my MS, the clinician smoothly pivoted, telling me that another coach, Todd, also had MS and would be assigned to me. I naively assumed Todd's MS must have drastically improved due to Avery. Later in an email, I asked if travel to Philadelphia was included in the $50K. Todd replied that they had knocked off $2,000 to cover my expenses, bringing the price to $48,000. Another red flag ignored. They were making it up as they went along. 4. The administrative red flags. When I was getting ready to transfer the funds, my bank contacted me to perform a routine fraud check. I told them it was fine, that I knew what I was doing. They asked if I had an invoice. I realized I hadn't been given one. I rushed Todd for it. What I received was a rudimentary Word template that a child could have produced. No company registration, no tax details, just a request to pay $48,000 into a Wells Fargo account for applied behavior research at a Virginia Beach address. My receipt was a screenshot of a mobile banking app. Next came an 8-page medical questionnaire demanding my entire medical history, sent via an insecure Proton drive. I later realized this highly sensitive Category A medical data was completely irrelevant to the actual service. It was entirely theatrical, designed to mimic a clinical environment. 5. The $48,000 therapy. In September 2025, I flew to Philadelphia. When I met Todd, I realized his MS was quite advanced. He required sticks to walk. Any illusion that Avery might help MS vanished. Yet he turned up to my hotel suite every day wearing a white lab coat to maintain the medical charade. Day 1 consisted of me lying on a yoga mat doing neurogenic tremors. I later discovered that these exercises were identical to the publicly available techniques known as TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises, which can be found freely online. Days 2 to 3, generic hypnotherapy and neuro-linguistic programming, mind rooms, again decades-old techniques, rebadged as proprietary military science. Day 4, deep breathing and breath holding. When I returned home, absolutely nothing had changed. I was devastated, embarrassed, and furious. Having coffee with friends one day, someone casually mentioned pseudoscience, and I felt the blood drain from my body. A deaf, dumb, and blind person would have spotted this. But what better way for an apex manipulator to hide in plain sight than by lecturing the world on how to spot a narcissist? 6. Turning AI into a force multiplier. Determined not to suffer in silence, I opened ChatGPT and typed, "I think I've been scammed." As a former business analyst, I love unpicking complex processes. With AI acting as my tireless legal research team and sounding board, we mapped out a devastating case of consumer fraud, bait-and-switch tactics, and fraudulent inducement. I sent a formal demand letter to Todd. Within a day, Chase countered through Todd, offering a partial $20,000 refund tied to a draconian NDA. I flatly refused and sent a comprehensive point-by-point breakdown directly to Chase's personal email. I highlighted the contractual contradictions, the lack of clinical training, and the bizarre cult-like narratives Todd had used to build Chase's mystique during our sessions, including claims that early versions of Avery involved waterboarding and intelligence-style interrogations, that the methodology was derived from MKUltra, that Chase once took a phone call from the leader of the Taliban. Faced with this exposure, Chase folded within 24 hours and offered a full refund, again trying to hide behind Todd's name and an aggressive non-disparagement clause. We went back and forth, but as my December deadline approached, Chase did a 180-degree turn, told me to stop bothering him, and had a Pennsylvania lawyer send me a threatening buyer's remorse intimidation letter, something I dare say he had done many times before. 7. The hidden bank trigger and the legal strike. On December 16th, I called my bank. I provided the invoice, the receipt, and Chase's written full refund offer, and requested a fraud recall on the funds. A month later, my bank told me the recall had failed because the beneficiary, Applied Behavior Research / Chase, refused to respond to Wells Fargo. With that door slammed shut, I gathered my cross-referenced evidence pack and knocked on doors in Chase's backyard. I retained a specialist consumer defense firm in Virginia. My lawyer assessed the evidence against the Virginia Consumer Protection Act and found blatant statutory violations, and issued a formal 7-day demand letter. If they didn't pay, we would file a lawsuit for triple damages plus legal fees. Within hours, Chase replied, suddenly thanking my lawyer. He claimed he had been trying ceaselessly to get my money back to me, writing that nobody wants her to have her money back more than we do. To prove his dilemma, Chase attached a screenshot showing his Wells Fargo account had been frozen pending closure. It turned out that my fraud recall request back in December had worked. It triggered an internal fraud investigation at Wells Fargo, which resulted in his corporate account being locked and my $48,000 earmarked for return. The interbanking system had gone into some sort of holding pattern, with Wells Fargo waiting for my bank to reissue the request. I got on the phone, my bank resent the request, and within an hour the money was back in my account. A week later, my lawyer secured all my legal and travel expenses, suggesting Chase didn't relish the idea of legal scrutiny. 8. The victims and perpetrators. On March 27th, I submitted a formal complaint to the Virginia Office of the Attorney General, citing public interest. I believe the coaches, the quote clinicians, are both victims and perpetrators of this scam. They pay thousands, possibly tens of thousands, for their training and are highly incentivized to claw it back by perpetrating the scam on others. Todd told me his first paying Avery customers were a couple he knew. He targeted them because, as he put it, I knew they could afford it. He told me about a vulnerable 30-year-old man who entered the program in a terrible psychological state, whose sister was subsequently sucked into signing up as well because they came from wealth. He also mentioned that the client of another coach was, like me, struggling, meaning that client too had realized it was a scam and wanted their money back. With 15 clinicians listed on the website, there must be a lot of victims out there. A call to action for other victims and insiders. I got my money back, but I put a lot of hours in and came out the other side a whole lot wiser. If the Avery program is anything to go by, the other books and courses marketed through the NCI website are of little to no value. There are consumer laws in place to protect us from bad actors. If you have been defrauded by Chase Hughes or the Avery program, do not suffer in silence or let shame keep you quiet. That's what these people rely on. Number 1, demand your money back. Number 2, report it to your bank's fraud department. Number 3, hire local Virginia counsel if necessary. Number 4, file a free confidential complaint with the Virginia Office of the Attorney General, Consumer Protection. If you file, reference my case number 26-02040, so the state can see the scale of this operation. To the coaches, clinicians, and other associates who know the dark reality of this operation, but are fearful of Chase's legal threats, your silence is what enables him to carry on. You need to know that private NDAs cannot legally prevent you from reporting consumer fraud or statutory violations to law enforcement. You can submit evidence to the Virginia Office of the Attorney General with complete anonymity to the business. Do not let fear or a toothless piece of paper stop you from reporting what you know. I survived this and you can too. I would be happy to speak to anyone who wants to get in touch to talk about their experience and/or to figure out a path forward. Okay, so that was a reading of a story sent to me by a Chase Hughes victim who succeeded in getting her money back. I'm putting the URL for the Virginia Office of the Attorney General on screen for the YouTube video, but if you want the link otherwise, go to whoischasehughes.com and look for the page with this story on it. And again, if you want to contact me about something you've experienced, reach out to me on the contact form on that site.